A very pleasant good afternoon to all of our viewers. Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk. We are delighted that you have been able to join us today, and we trust by God's grace that our session today will prove meaningful. We have been for the last few weeks dealing with the subject, ministry in a changing world. We spoke about pastoral ministry last week. We spoke about family dynamics. And may I just say to all of our viewers from last week who have been requesting a part 2 to that, we're going to be doing part 2 next week. But this week we have another very interesting subject. We're going to be talking about ministering to children and youth. That is a big area. And with that, we have our children's ministries director and our youth director. Before I introduce them to you, I invite you to bow your heads for a word of prayer, shall we? Eternal Father and our God, be with us, grant us your peace and your blessings. Help us to, as we share on today's program, share meaningful and insightful information that will make a difference. We are discussing 2 areas that are rather very dynamic, rather very important, but areas that we obviously have serious challenges, and we ask that you will grant us your wisdom and your grace as we share today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So friends, as indicated, we have with us, we are discussing ministry in a changing world, and today we are talking about ministering to children and youth. Today's society is a very pluralistic one. And so we have our youth director and our education director, education children's ministry director. Let me introduce these 2 individuals to you. First, I want to go with Dr. Eulalie Semper. Dr. Semper is our education and children's ministries director. She's no stranger to Let's Talk. She has been here 1 or 2 times before. Dr. Semper, good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Greene. Good afternoon to you.
And with us also is Pastor Sherwin White. Pastor White is the newly elected Youth and Chaplaincy Director, also Assistant to the President for Evangelism. Welcome, Pastor White.
It's a pleasure, Doc. Thanks for having me on the show this afternoon, and I'm looking forward to a very meaningful session.
Well, I'm happy to have you both with us this afternoon. We have limited time. We're off to a little late start. I am apologizing for the few minutes late this afternoon. Every now and then I change location, and sometimes the connection is not always the best, but we're grateful to God for the opportunity to come your way. I want to get right into the discussion, and I want to begin with you, Pastor White. Well, let me begin with Dr. Semper instead. We're talking about ministry to youths and adults in the current era. These 2 groups constitute one of the greatest challenges to ministry. I believe you would agree with me on that. How do we relate to these age groups, especially the children and junior youths? When we look at the fact that children and junior youths determine to a great extent the kind of society we will have in the future. So, Dr. Semper, as I said, I want to begin with you. How is today's culture and climate in the sense of norms and practices, how is today's culture creating a challenge to ministry to children?
Thank you, Dr. Greene. Indeed, it's a challenge because culture to a great extent determines how we live, how we think, what we believe, the activities we embrace, the values we have, the very food we eat, because we're part of a society. And there's one ecologist called Bronfenbenner, German. He said clearly that there's different systems that we have to always be aware of, and they're part of who we are. We have the microsystem, we have the mesosystem, the macrosystem, and the chronosystem, the microsystem, very immediate, the families, the parents, the aunts, the uncles, the schools. Then we have the mesosystem, how all of these systems interact. And then we have the entire macro system now, and then the corner system, the things that happen in the family. That is important to the answer, because we cannot ignore the existence of the following norms and practices. You have conflicting values, one of the norms probably that you would have referred to. You have lack of respect, just to name a few, of self and others. We have social conflicts. We have cross-cultural exposure. You know, we have busy and absent parents, consumerism, all of these things. You know, we also have what we call the indifference to the nature of God and the word of God, and the desire to get rich quickly, and of course the social media. But what is important that we always remember in our ministry to children is that children are made in the image of God. And in spite of what is happening all around us, ministry to children is rooted in the understanding that children are fearfully and wonderfully made. It is a process, Dr. Greene, that connects children to Jesus and his story. So when children internalize God's story, it gives purpose, meaning, and value to life. So whatever we do, whatever the challenges, it's important that all of these systems that we have working for us simply show children that they're made in the image of God and connects children to Jesus, because outside of this foundation, everything else becomes blurred. You know, we have, how do you refer? He, she, ze, they, all of these are there. But once we are rooted in the system that I just spoke to, ministry becomes easier and more focused.
Now you highlighted a number of areas that I hope we have time to go into. Essentially, what I hear you saying is that we can't really discuss ministry to children and youth in a vacuum. To talk about children's ministry, you highlighted parenting, you highlighted schools, and you highlighted social media. I think the changing culture that we're in. I really hope we get time to discuss those various facets. But let me, for now, ask this. Do you think that our parents of today are sufficiently aware of the challenges and implications?
You know, sometimes I wonder, and I tend to say it does not seem so, because the fact is that on a daily basis, anyone getting on the internet has access to more information than all the previous centuries combined. This is a big deal. But this exposure has slowly but consistently eroded what we valued as intellectual power that fostered respect and community. And parents must be aware of this. There's a little wonder that this plethora of knowledge, sadly mistaken for wisdom, has created this false sense of security and a societal disconnect that promotes disrespect for lives and people. Now, parents are very, very crucial in the lives of the children. Yes, we have schools, we have churches, we have communities, but parents, the one thing that we must remember is that parents should be the first teachers. And not only should they be the first teachers, they must understand the messages that they're teaching and do not teach half-hearted message. They must do enough to ensure that the environment that they create for the children as the first teachers, the environment are safe and nurturing and loving, because these are the years that really matter. And as a matter of fact, the first 3 years of life, this is important. 80% of the brain cells a person will ever have are formed in the first 3 years of life. And where does a child spend those first 3 years? With the parents. Families have the first power to act on behalf of the child, Dr. Greene, and provide a stimulating environment. That's why the church is so important. Bring them to Sabbath school, ensure that they're there, because all of these, the church, the Helping Adventurers program, the Pathfinders program, the Vacation Bible schools, the family worship. What do we do in those first years? To whom do we expose our children to? The future is already formed by the very beginning. So parents are key, not the schools, not the churches, the support. The parents are key to what happens in society.
It appears as if Dr. Greene is
System or your system, but kind of missed it there for a little bit. I know my internet is not the best where I am right now. I am not at home, not in Antigua, in fact. But when
Oh, wow. I think we can probably through Dr.
but the contribution you made is.
I'm hoping that the contribution was heard, Dr. Greene. And I'm not hearing you clearly. But just in summary, the parents are the first role models, and parents must be conscious that the support system they provide will determine the child's future. Seems that you're off. The schools, the churches, the communities, these help parents to have a better society. Parents hold the keys. Parents hold the keys, not anybody else, not any other institution, the parents. And the value of parenting must never be taken for granted.
Okay, we got you, Dr. Semper. Pastor White, are you hearing me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful. I want to go to you. I'm tempted to continue with some of those very important issues that Dr. Semper raised there, but in the interest of time, let me switch to you now. You are the youth director. Just the other day, I suppose you could say that you were young. Maybe you would still want to say that, but in context of,
no, that's a long time. All
you
right.
know, but looking back on your own childhood and young adult life, how has being a youth changed over the years?
Wow. By the way, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate the insightful comments given by Dr. Semper based on the questions that, you know, have been posed to her. I had a few contributions that I wanted to make there.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I just want to say something based on the question that you asked earlier, whether or not the parents might be sufficiently aware of the challenges and the implications, you know, that face the children today. I would say actually, no, they're not sufficiently aware. There is that level of awareness that is there, but when we look at it from a holistic standpoint, I think sometimes what we would say, and you hear it a lot, where folk would say, when I was, right, when I was a youth, you know, when I was going to school. And I think that I can pivot on this, right, based on the question that you asked. When I look at myself, when I, you know, was actually coming through the ranks, what our children are actually exposed to now, we were not exposed to those things. As simple as you look at it, cable TV. Cable TV. I did not have cable TV. And of course, you hardly saw a man and a woman kissing in a show. That's what I'm talking about, right? So in terms of how my mind was shaped, etc. So when we look at what the young people are actually exposed to today and what is actually sucking our young people in, we have the adults. Now, hear me now, we have the adults who should be more matured and so on. They are actually addicted to lots of what the young people are addicted to. So just imagine that if the young people are addicted, what about, just tell me, what about if the adults are addicted? What about the younger ones? What about the younger ones who have not actually developed that level of maturity as yet? I was in a gathering, Dr. Greene, just a few weeks ago. And in that gathering, a Sabbath afternoon, there was an adult there. And this adult was on TikTok, right? I'm just sharing with you on TikTok. And all of the different stuff, it's coming up and the different music and everything and so on. And I'm saying, just look at this. This is an adult. And the adult is there. More so our children. Just think about it. More so our children today. So when I think of when I was actually growing up, it is different. More so, we think of the young people today, they have quote unquote certain rights that we did not have. For us, maybe the right was to be obedient. The right was to follow to follow the counsels of the adults. But today, that's not the way it is. You would actually, for me, growing up, you see an adult. Once you see an adult, the thing would be for you to respect, say good morning, everything. That youth today would look you in your face, right? And they say, hey, listen, as much as I have to, you would have to also. So when we think about the rights that the youth, they actually have, whether it is right or not, that's for us to debate.
Well, it's interesting. And I think Dr. Semper made reference to a few of those things as well. I remember when the first television came into my village, as a little boy growing up, we were accustomed to sitting in families, huddled together, talking stories and sharing time. And then when night comes, that you sleep. It's a totally different milieu that we are exposed to right now, and we are seeing the effects of this. Seriously, Dr. Semper, you look like you were going to make a point there.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. And just to go back to where we were in the beginning, even though we know the situation, this is what is happening, and we have given some reasons for possible reasons for why these things are happening. And you see, for example, we have prominent persons in our society, for example, who have paved the way, guided by core values of hard work, dedication, compassion, love, ambition, some of the things that we would want to see. But these are ridiculed and treated with disdain because the social media now always has the information. So on the other hand, now you have, as it's like a direct opposition to the creator. There's a fascination with anything that is not of Christ. So that's why I established at the beginning the importance of knowing why we're here. It's to teach the next generation to be followers of Christ, and that has to be always in our minds. There's cyberbullying, the get rich quick schemes. One is celebrated for coming out. For example, sharing that one is probably practicing homosexuality. It's celebrated. But on the other hand, if one comes and establishes, okay, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist Christian and I do not believe in homosexuality, that person may be ostracized. So it's like a direct, it's like a war between good and evil. So it's important that as children, ministries leaders, we understand that rooted in everything, we must always have at the forefront of our minds a purpose why we serve. And I think it's to ensure that we have the next generation following Christ.
So we have established that there are very serious issues. They're changing dynamics, and all of these work to making ministry to children a lot more complex. I remember 4 years ago when we sat as a conference to work on the strategic plan, the SWOT analysis from the various congregations revealed that in nearly every congregation, the number one concern had to do with youth issues. At the same time, many, inclusive of governments and private sector agencies, see the Seventh-day Adventist Youth Ministry Program as among the best in the world. I've had government officials tell me, they really appreciate what the church is doing with its youth ministry. Yes. But at the same time, and Pastor White, maybe you can seek to offer a response here, because while so many persons out there, there was a time when, and I don't want to necessarily call the agency, but a well-known agency sat with us and said, listen, can you give us the model that you use? Because there's so many challenges among the young people, and we see that this is making such a difference in your organization. But at the same time, while all of that is so, why is it then that some of our congregations still struggle to host effective youth ministry? Pastor White.
Wow, what a difficult question. Let me see how I can begin. Let me begin by saying, first of all, Doc, 4 years, or the 4 years that you made reference to when we actually did that SWOT analysis, 4 years, it's like eternity. That's it. Because things have changed drastically since then. Because just imagine that 4 years ago, we did not have COVID. And 4 years ago, we did not have as greater exposure to social media and the internet as we have today. Because even being on this platform here, it wasn't quite often we would actually see each other on television or on YouTube. Back then, if you had a show with 40 persons following you, it was, extremely high. So things have changed drastically. Now, as you've referred to the comparison, the challenges that we have, but while we have the challenges, I think the world sees something good in us. I think firstly, one of the things that we have to do, even before we highlight the challenges, is to actually celebrate our young people and to celebrate what they're doing, because the world recognizes that we are doing something great. But what we do not do at times, we do not take the opportunity to really celebrate our young people, celebrate the programs that we have. We kind of point at, the pitfalls, the shortfalls that we have. Notwithstanding, as we look at the shortfalls that we have, I think to a great degree, it has to do with the fact that we are running, in many areas, what I call standpipe ministry. What do I mean by a standpipe ministry? In the past, there was that community standpipe where everyone had to go there, and you're fetching your bottles or fetching your your bucket on your head. That's what you were doing. And some places it may still be there, right? But you're actually taking your water from there to your home. But now we find that individuals have shower. That's what they have. But many a times what we are doing, we're actually still looking at the past, and we want to actually, Dr. Semba, I see you laughing. Oh, my. I'm sorry, Dr. Semper. Now, what we have to realize here is that things have changed. Our young people that we have today, our young people, we at times do not allow them to actually be young, because we want them to actually act maturely the way we would act. Yes, there are certain things that we know it is dangerous, and we actually have to put the stop sign. But sometimes we have to allow our young people to actually go through this teenage year. That's what we have to do. And we have to stop focusing on what we used to do. So for instance, Dr. Greene, you had an afro, right? You wore bell bottoms, and Doc, you had an afro, right? You had a little something at some point.
I'll tell you more than that. I had a big afro, man.
No, so Doc, just
imagine. It's a flat
imagine.
here every afternoon after school and lose it out the next morning. Comb it out. And that was the thing.
No, so look at this. You had your afro. You wore your bell bottoms, but I just can't picture you in a platform shoe. That's what I can do right now. But we have elders who actually wore those things. But now for our young people who may want to go with a mohawk, those who want to go with their skinny jeans, not the extra skinny or so on, we are going to have a challenge with it. That's what we are doing, not understanding that it is an era that our young people, they must go through, because not everything that is popular is actually wrong. Not everything that's popular or the fads and the fashions, it's not necessarily wrong. So I don't think at times we give our young people the opportunity to live through that teenage years. Let me share one last thing before I guess Dr. Semper chime in, or yourself. Since I'm here, I have been engaging my stakeholders in some meetings, and I give an assignment to individuals in the meetings. I would assign a person, and I say, what I want you to do for me? Record how many times you hear these saying, when we were young, what we used to do, when this person was director in the past. Now listen, I am saying that a meeting that might actually go for an hour and a half, you might be surprised that you're having 120 references to when we were young, what we used to do, we used to go here. So what's happening is that individuals, while we are in the present, and we should be thinking of how we are going to minister to these young people, because the computer, the cell phones, the everything that we have today, it is not what we had yesterday. So I think that because sometimes we are stuck in the past, it actually affects us and affects certain congregations in terms of having meaningful ministry.
Let me jump in here, Pastor. I do agree that, you know, there is let me put it this way. You know, if culture changes, right, and there is wiggle room in culture, and the change is always painful, but the rate of cultural change today is much faster than it was when we were growing up.
Correct.
You know, we see things coming in and out of style so very quickly. And I think that's one of the dynamic, but I kind of want to go back a little bit to the direct question that I asked, because
Yes.
I'm really want to know, you know, if we have congregations, we have Seventh-day Adventist congregations that do not have active youth ministry programs. And Dr. Semper, you can also chime in, because there are congregations that you may find where children's Sabbath school maybe is neglected, etc., ministry to the children. And what I'm given the fact that so many people out there appreciate and laud what we do, what do we say to those congregations that are not getting on board with organizing effective ministry to our young people? That's really where I was going.
I just want to just give an attempt at the answer for that one from my perspective. The churches, we cannot ever separate ourselves from our spiritual focus. Yes, the social part of us is very important, all of that. But you see, we need Seventh-day Adventist Church in every department. Seventh-day Adventist Church needs spiritual leaders, people who understand the purpose of Adventism, who understand the value of being a Seventh-day Adventist, who understand how these contributing subsets of the church continue to impact lives positively. And when we embrace it, when we understand, I became a Seventh-day Adventist because of the AY. So, and it was not because the AY was having that there were all of these excitements happening. It's because the AY at that time for me was fulfilling a need. But within that need, still, Christ was always ever present. And we cannot take Christ out of the picture. And sometimes it seems that we may need to have leaders who embrace and value Adventism at its core. Because if that doesn't happen, we'll still continue to spend time arguing and talking without understanding that ministry is actually an action. It's not just talking, it's contributing to the lives of people. And we have to be passionate about it. And when there's no passion, what happens is that people become laid back and not willing to take the next step. So that's just one of the possible reasons I'm suggesting that may be contributing to why some of our churches are not the way they should be. Whether it's pastoral leadership or my leadership, whatever, leadership needs to be spiritual.
Well, you know, that is true, and I do agree with you. The challenges in youth ministry are great, and I hear some people saying, I don't have the time. You know, young children these days are too disgusting. I can't bother with that, etc. But we hear the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and we are going to have to make sacrifices. I started earlier by suggesting that when we consider children and youth, we're talking about dynamics that impact in a very significant way our future, the future generation. Now, we may pass off the scene of action, as we all will one of these days, but the young people of today will become the adults of tomorrow. Yes. And if we don't do a good job at instilling the value systems in them, then our world is going to become really, really mixed up. So, Pastor White, I want to jump back to you in a little bit there, because we cannot afford, you'd agree that we cannot afford to ignore ministry. Now, I heard you saying some very important things, that as adults, we must not forget where we came from. And I think that is very true. But at the same time, to ignore organizing an AY department or Pathfinder ministry, and I'm sure you would passionately speak about that.
Pastor White, go ahead.
Okay, I guess you know,
Pastor White, are you there?
yes, I am here. I just I don't know if it's my internet here, but I lost you a bit to the end.
We're suggesting that we cannot ignore ministry in the churches. So maybe a comment on it.
Okay, let me see. Is Doc with us? Back with us?
No, he's not. So you go ahead. And just to extend the conversation until he gets back, sometimes because we are not sure of our values, and I'm going to say what you probably you're going in the opposite direction, but I'm bringing them together because we have to hold fast to what we as Seventh-day Adventists know and believe as we try to work with the outer world. That's why we spoke about all the macro systems and the meso systems and all of that. We can't allow those systems to dominate what we Bible believing Adventists believing. As we pull them together, we're supposed to create a balance. And sometimes the balance is lost in the direction of the world.
I fully embrace what you have shared here. And for me, I think, of course, having spiritual leaders, that is crucial. That's what it is. But then still what I'm saying, and I think for us, it's how do we actually package our message? And that's the thing, packaging what we have, because even what we have today, right? What we have today, we remember that there was something that was actually there before. That's the truth.
Right.
So in terms of us having our spiritual leaders and these individuals disseminating the value, the truth is that things may just be done from a different perspective, but it doesn't mean that we are taking away the value. That's what it doesn't mean. Because we do need spiritual leaders, and more than that, we have to have individuals at the end of the day who truly understand what Adventism is, to understand that AY and Pathfinders and adventurers and Master Guide, it is not like Girl Scouts or any Salvation Army thing or so on. Because our main message, the Advent message to all the world in my generation, right? You know, the love of Christ compels me. We have a mighty army ready to do and dare. These are things that we have to do because ultimately our goal is to transform lives. Our goal is to really meet the world out there. But how do we do it? Do we do it the same way?
No, right. I get you.
Well, I'm back. You realize that I dropped out, right?
Yes, you did.
Yes.
I am apologizing again for the bad internet connection. This is entirely beyond my control. But that's an interesting discussion. So let me just follow up on that, because what I think I hear you saying as I came back in is that we have to be willing to adopt. We have to provide relevant ministry.
Right.
The matter of relevance is very important. I can't teach young people and I can't relate to young people as I did 10, 15 years ago. It's a different age. I remember, for example, a few years ago, and things move so fast these days, when cell phone became popular, I almost want to say when cell phone was becoming popular, and we started getting Bibles and cell phones, and I attempted to read my Bible in the pulpit from my cell phone. People would say that I am disrespectful and it is ungodly, it is irreverent to be carrying a cell phone in the podium and that kind of thing, you know. And we don't say that anymore. We have moved on from there, but some people have not made the adjustment, and I think these are some of the things we need to be able to adapt.
Yes. And Doc, just look, for instance, right? The union has launched a film festival. That's what it is?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And of course, in South Leeward Conference, we would be having our localized stuff. When we think of that, right, we are talking about creative ways in terms of ministering to our children and our youth. That's what we are doing. So even for instance, I may have been asked to, in the past, for master guides, that you have to read Steps to Christ, right? We can tell folk now, listen to. We have so many audio books, and you have different ways. We can tell our pathfinders as they go out there to create vlogs or to create blogs, as they go and they visit the shut-ins, etc. So they can actually utilize the technological devices that they have to fulfill the ministry. And that, of course, would actually stimulate them. So we have to think about those things.
Well, let's get a little. Go ahead, Dr. Semple. Go ahead.
The thing is, these would not happen in isolation. We can have all the programs in the world and be relevant and creative as ever. And I love creativity, I love relevance. If persons do not have an appreciation for what you're doing, it's not going to happen. And a very important thing is like building relationships, connecting, showing love, being congruent, home, church, school, all of the factors working together, supporting one another. And I think that's a major problem we have. We have leaders who do not even appreciate the church, leaders who speak negatively against leaders that fight in the church. There's this envy and jealousy and fighting. And the children are all part of that, and the young people. And then now we come with a creative program and expect them to celebrate. They're not going to appreciate it because we have failed at the micro level and at the macro level. We have failed to put the foundation in place. And because the foundation is not there of respect and love and care, no matter what we do, we are not going to be successful. So it's important that we target families, parents who are listening. We have to send the same messages all the time, because we are destroying our own young people, not the church.
Well, let me get a little deeper into this, right? When I went to school, I still remember, Pastor White, you made reference to when I was, but I remember my primary school days. And the things we used to be disciplined for in schools back then were dirty fingernails and unkept hair. These days, children are carrying guns and knives to school. Our world has changed in a major way. The media plays a significant role in this, because the media is appealing to the minds of our children. The average child today has a cell phone with internet connection, and hence they're exposed to all sorts of vices. They're exposed to very good things, but they're also exposed to some very terrible things on the internet. So rather than playing out in nature, climbing trees, there's so many of our young boys and girls who don't even know how to climb a tree. They're playing video games. Now, my question, it may be a simple question on the surface, but I think it's involved. To both of you, how do we minister to children and youth in the context of this challenge?
In the context of the social media challenge, and they bring in guns and all of that to school. Well, we have been saying that we have to be relevant. We have to be aware of what's happening. And for me, I look at what is the reason for the child bringing a knife and guns? Just to take one up, because it's such a broad question. What is the reason for the knife and the gun to be coming into school? Where is the disconnect? What has gone wrong? So it's very important in our ministry that parents are part of our ministry and appealing to children's emotional well-being, social well-being, that physical well-being. And it's a collective ministry again. Yes, they're bringing the knives to school, but they're not just bringing it. It just didn't happen. It happened over a period of time. And something has gone wrong in the life of the child who does that. And so therefore, that part must be taken into consideration, the parents and so forth, and the child himself, herself. And we have to still continue to provide opportunities. Our children are not reading anymore. They are unable, not all of them, many of our children are not able to read fluently. Reading, it says, helps the mind, it helps the development of the brain, and it helps with decision making. People are instant now, instant. There's no reasoning skills. There's no time to think. think, and then react. Is reacting before thinking. So some of the things that we possibly can do, we still have to provide opportunities for socialization and opportunities for building relationships, opportunities to make eye contact. Proverb says it, that the soul is revealed through the eyes. And just sounds very simple, but failure to have that physical space and that physical contact can contribute to some of the things that we are talking about. I can't give all, I'll leave some for Pastor to say, but it's too much. It's a beautiful, beautiful topic. And I would really, really love to see us giving some more time, maybe another time, to children, how we can help emotionally disturbed children to become better decision makers.
Okay, Dr. Semple, what I would just want to add to this here, and the question that Dr. Greene asked, I think with the age that we have and how do we transition, how do we minister to these children, I think that it may be prudent if we can have like a sample group that we can use, you know, a smaller group, because I am just thinking of sometime earlier this year, maybe it was during the Easter period, while we had a camp and we had our young people there. Of course, they did not have the access to the internet or anything like that, but you just had them out there running around, who was swinging on trees, etc. And they really appreciated it. Now, if they weren't removed from that setting with those devices and so on, they would not have actually appreciated that. So if you can actually start with smaller groupings, people have the appreciation. And I guess that one person can tell another that, hey, this isn't as bad as we think it is. Because rather than using a Wii to climb tree or a Wii to play cricket and tennis, you can actually go out there and you can enjoy it for yourselves.
So one of the advantages of the camps that we organize at church, you know, where some parents don't send their children,
right,
you know, is that we're giving exposure and showing children how they can truly enjoy themselves. But here are a couple of questions that some of our viewers are asking. I took the time to look at the chat, and there's some interesting questions here. I want to this one, many parents, and I'm going to add something to it too, but many parents have no parenting skills, especially in these challenging times. Now, if I have a child at the age of 13, how can I have parenting skill at age 13? That's the part I'm adding, right? So many parents do not have parenting skill, the listener says. And the question is, what can we do as a church to assist them in acquiring these skills? And the person adds that the home is the foundation.
Yes, and to go first, people must be willing to access the opportunities. Because I remember going to the last parenting skill workshop that we had with Pastor Brathwaite. And I remarked to Pastor Brathwaite, when I looked around at the parents who attended, these workshops, this parental workshop, were the parents whose children are relatively, you know, doing well academically, you know, those parents who give a lot to the children, and very few of other parents were there. So it's important that we provide more opportunities. I agree with you. And it's also important that when opportunities are provided, people access those opportunities and try to learn. Because we can't force learning. We first have to understand the importance. Why is it important? And then seek as much as possible. We understand that it's so important to influence the next generation, that we access these and we put ourselves in the ways. And we have many books. One of the books that I always recommend to parents, Child Guidance, The Adventist Home. These persons say, some people say they're outdated, but they are very good books that can help parents with parenting their children.
You know, Pastor White, before you comment.
No, I would not add to what Dr. Semple said there.
Well, let me just say that my experience in the Seventh Adventist Church is that we provide a whole lot of opportunities for training. nurturing development. We give exposure. It's a blessing to be a Seventh Adventist.
Amen.
The challenge, however, is that a lot of people do not
Access.
they do not take advantage of the opportunities that are presented them. You know, we have family life weeks,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We have parenting seminars. We
Yes.
have all kinds of training workshop, even for our leaders. I was looking in the chat now, and somebody's commenting that one of the first things we need to start is to train youth leaders. But we have an abundance of
Every year.
leadership training
Every single year.
every year, multiple times a year. But do people access these? And that is one of the challenges that I think is so significant, you know, that people are not accessing the challenges that are there. So let me just ask quickly another question that some of our viewers are asking. This person says, oh, that's really a comment. Well, lots of comments, lots of chatter, and most of them are comments. Wow, my child is 30 plus, but when we are together, we leave room together. We leave home together and sit together in church. That's an interesting one. Let me move on with this. You know, Dr. Semper, you are the education director, in addition to children's ministry director. And we have already established the fact that school is an integral part of the package.
Yes.
As Seventh Adventists, we promote Christian education.
Yes.
How is Christian education related to children's ministry?
It's very related, Dr. Greene. It's ministering to children. But as Seventh Adventist education, seeks to integrate the Seventh-day Adventist philosophy and beliefs into every area of study. You know, we hold students to high academic achievement as well as accountability in their walk with God. That's children's ministries. Our students, you know, they're challenged to achieve their fullest potential and to become contributing citizens in society. Look at what's happening in society now. They're encouraged to grow in faith and to ask questions that help them to understand why they believe and what they believe. And there's a longitudinal study that was conducted by the church, and it revealed that students who attend Seventh-day Adventist schools are more likely, not everyone, are more likely to stay in church and send their children to an Adventist school and continue the next generation of Adventists. I started with that because that's the point I want to plug in. The next generation of Adventists. When we're preparing for the next generation of Adventists, we do not want Adventism to die with us. Every day in schools, children are ministered to through various programs that are relevant and with value-based, and they promote partnerships that align with faith and holistic development. Children's ministries in the church setting also minister to children through Bible-based programs and activities that are intended to nurture faith and lead them into a loving, saving relationship with Jesus. So it's the same goal, same purpose. Therefore, it's important. What happens at home happens at church, it happens at school. We're talking about the mesosystems and how they interact so that the child can see through our total effort that we mean what we say. We're not just talkers. We talk Adventism, but we do not really appreciate and love it. You know, we can say we love it, but is it for us or for our children, the next generation of children that would have? So they're all related, Dr. Greene, as we just seek to make boys and girls spiritual, give spiritual health, social, mental, all coming together to create holistic children that are well-grounded, value-based, and contribute to society.
I mean, there's so much more we can say about that. We only have about 5 more minutes, so I do need to ask 2 questions here. I need to put these 2 in. Let me go with this one. There are challenges. We have identified several in various areas, but you know, at the end of the day, I think I can still say that our boys and girls who attend our schools and who are involved in youth ministry are much better behaved than their peers in general society. I listen to Seventh Adventist children who go to Sabbath school, who go to Pathfinders, etc.
Yes.
And when I hear them speak, when I look at how they can stand in front of a crowd and present themselves, you know, one parent, I heard the story of somebody, Dr. Somebody, I'm not sure if it was you, but somebody went to visit the hospital. A little child was so confident, and they were asked, where do you go to, how are you able to speak so confident? When the person responded by saying, I attend the Seventh Adventist school. So you know, there are significant blessings from taking hold of these things. What would you therefore say to those children, or parents rather, of children who hinder their children from receiving the benefits of the ministry that the church provides, whether it be to Christian education, pathfinding, children's Sabbath school? Pastor White.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pastor.
All right. I just want to share an example before I give an answer here. I was on the beach and I met a lady. She's a lawyer. And when I said that, listen, I am Seventh-day Adventist, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, she said that while she studied in Barbados, Cave Hill, she would attend the Advent Fellowship. And she said, I am so amazed, that's what she said, at the leaders that you guys have. She said, those young people are so confident. And more so, she said, I was invited to a church. And the thing is that she went to the church when they had an adventurous day, and she could not believe, you know, those are, you know, 5 and 6 year old children. What we are saying is this: you do not know the injury and injustice that you're actually doing to your children when you do not allow them to access the adventurers and the pathfinders and the AY society. And sometimes the damage, it is irreparable. So what I want to say to our parents who are out there, give that child the opportunity to just benefit from the adventurers, the pathfinders, and the other clubs that are assigned. And of course, I know that you have to pay for SDA education, but I'll just put in a plug here. When you actually send them there, they have the opportunity to pray, you know, they have the opportunity to do speeches and so on. I mean, I don't know about the world. That's the truth. I only know about the church. I grew up in the system, and of course, I'm not going to trade what I benefited from for anything. I'm not going to trade it. But what I know is that just by simply not allowing your children to be a part of it, you're doing a great injury to them.
All right, Dr. Semper.
Same thing. I love it. Parents, you must be involved with your children. Participation is not involvement. You must be involved. It's up to you. They're your children. We support you. Love your children so much that you will do anything to save their souls. That's what we're about. Not about the Nike shoes and all the name brands. Those will go. And about having the best. It's about being the best as that God wants us to be. Be involved. Bring them to church. Bring them to Wednesday night service. I never missed the Wednesday night service when I had my children growing up because they had to learn the prayer is important. And we take these things for granted. The church is there for us. It's a beautiful church with lots of beautiful experiences. And if we do not embrace them, time will tell. So let us try our best to be God-given parents, loving our children, but giving them every opportunity to be saved in God's kingdom.
There is so much more that we can say, but we only have another minute. You know, I don't know that we can respond in that short time. I wanted to ask you, we haven't spoken about engagement but we have been in a sense talking about how our children are involved. But I wanted to ask you about some of your plans. Can you take 30 seconds each and talk about some of your vision for youth ministry, for children's ministry?
Okay, let me just share 5 quick things here for me. I am looking in terms of shrinking the conference. What do I mean? I think sometimes we are functioning Montserrat, St. Kitts, Nevis, Barbuda, Antigua. We have to do ministry that would actually bring our young people together, and not only in terms of youth ministry, because I have the responsibility for evangelism also. I think by so doing, we can learn so much from each other. I think of creative and innovative ministry that is very important. And what we have to do is to make sure that we provide a space that would actually keep our young people. Before we think of reclaiming, we have to set up systems to make sure that we can keep what we have, then we reclaim, and then we can deploy individuals. I'm really thinking of really launching our young people out into lots of spiritual, well, in terms of evangelism, I want us to embrace the OYIM, that's the 1 year in mission concept that the General Conference have, because to teach our young people to be missionaries out there, have our Bible connections, adventurous pathfinders, and the seniors. It should be to the forefront. And just one last thing, for us to really impact all of the tertiary level education institutions that we have, and that is for our public campus ministries. And as well, I think today is actually Public Campus Ministries Day.
Well,
So
I'm going to have to cut you off there, Pastor White.
Pardon?
I'm going to have to cut you off there because we're kind of
Yes.
out of time, and I want Dr. Semper to respond to the same question.
Yes.
Education is for another program. So let me just
Yes.
for children's ministries, we want to involve the number of men in children's ministries. There seems to be a relationship between children's behavior, especially the boys, and the absence or presence of men. So we want to have some programs that will seek to involve more men in children's ministries. We want to have a mentorship of boys. We started it. We're going to continue that and take that to the community. And we want to address some of the crimes in society and using our young people to be part of the solution. We want to create opportunities for value-based ministries through socialization, face-to-face contact, and having child-friendly churches. Our churches are not putting enough emphasis on making the environment child-friendly. It must look good, and the children are happy to come. So some of the general plans we have for improving children's ministries over the next 4 years. Many more, but
well, thank you so much for sharing. I know that time was limited and we had to rush some of these things, but we will have other occasions in the future to go deeper into some of the issues that were raised. I want to remind our viewers and listeners that next week we will have part 2 of family dynamics. We did not touch certain things. We did not touch marriage at all. So Pastor Stanton Adams is going to be back next week. We're going to talk about family dynamics, and we have some exciting things lined up for you, but our time is up. We have to go now. May God bless you. Do have a wonderful rest of the day.
God bless you.